Hi, I'm Brad Rao, BradRaoMusic.com, and guitar teacher at Taylor Music in Westchester. So we're going to get started here with this lesson on Robert Johnson. So we're going to start with a D7 chord. So if you have a D7 chord, you're halfway done this lesson. So it's actually, even though this is an intermediate lesson, it's actually not really going to be that hard as you think. We're going to go through everything. So to make a D7 chord, I usually put my index finger on the second string on the first fret, not the first string, but the second string. Then my second finger on the second fret of the third string, the G. And then my ring finger is going to be on the first string on the second fret. So I got 2, 1, 2. So that's a D7 chord. It's kind of like an upside down D. 2, 1, 2. So once you find that, so what we're going to do now, this chord, of course, you can scooch it around here. So I'm going to scooch it up 2 frets, and actually it's an E7 chord. Now to hit this right here, I have a finger on each string, and I'm hitting it one at a time, kind of a classical guitar technique. You can also just take one finger. That's probably more of a bluesy sound anyway. We're going to talk about that, but I'm just kind of more used to this, whatever you're used to, and we're going to use this low E string. So I end up getting this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this up to where my index finger is on the 8th fret and my second finger and third finger on the 9th fret. So I think of this as the 9th fret, the last dot before the 12th fret, the 2 dots. I'm going to hit that with all 3 fingers, or just scraping it across with one finger like this. And I'm going to get this index finger going here. Okay? So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to have, I'm going to play 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to slide this chord down 1 fret. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is just the skeleton right now. If you get this skeleton, there's a lot of Robert Johnson songs built on this skeleton. And then the little quirks we're going to get into later. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now normally I would Travis pick this, where I would palm mute the bass notes while hitting the other notes. I'm not doing that right now because just the camera and this guitar and with my fingernails, just to balance out the volume. I don't think you can really hear the bass on the camera. Live you can hear it, but so I'm going to play like this today. Now then I'm going to go, this chord here, this is another Robert Johnson go-to chord. So this is an A7 chord here. This first one's A7. This next one is, here's that same D7 that hopefully you've seen before if you've played blues. And I'm going to take the top note, which is F sharp, and I'm going to move it down to the bottom, which is F sharp. I'm actually going to play that with my second finger. And then I'm going to catch these other notes. This is again on the on the first fret with the second string. This is the second fret on the third string. And then I have the second fret. So I have 2, 0, 0, 2, 1, and then open if you want it. Maybe for jazz, usually in blues. Sometimes I add that note in or not. But we have 2, open, open, 2, 1, 2. And I'm using my second finger, open, open, third finger, first finger, and open. And then I'm going to do that same kind of going back to the A7 here. Now for the E7, I'm just going to push one finger down. So this is not the first string, the second string, but the third string on the first fret. I'm going to be hitting either the first 3 strings, or I'm hitting the second, third, and fourth string while hitting the bass note. Going back to this is a D7 with an F sharp in the bass. 2, 0, 0, 2, 1. And then I have this turnaround here. My pinky is on the 5th fret of the high E string. My ring finger is on the 5th fret of the D string. So 1, and I'm going to hit these notes together. I'm going to move that note down to the 2nd fret. This is the 4th fret. The top note is going to stay the same. And the bottom note moves from the ring finger to the 2nd finger, to the 2nd finger, and to the 1st finger again. So if you get confused on that, you can just play another A7. So here's the whole thing put together. Okay, so that's the skeleton of a lot of Robert Johnson songs. And what we want to do is we want to be able to elaborate on that. So what we're going to do right now is look at some different ways to elaborate that. So we're going to take this first chord right here, and I'm just going to hit on, we were doing beat 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and we were going through the whole song. I'm going to go through the whole thing, and of course I was doing a typical blues progression. So if you're not familiar with a blues progression by now, this, you want to go back and review that. This isn't really on blues progressions today. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to hit on beat 2 now. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. I might even wait to move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Always on beat 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Turn around. We're going to talk about the turnaround later, how to spice that up. So then obviously we're going to go through beat 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're going to go through the whole blues progression on beat 3. Then you're going to go through the whole blues progression on the 4th beat. I'm not going to demonstrate all of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're going to go through 3, 4, going through the whole thing like that. Then we're going to go through the 8th notes. And since I'm going to do a swing, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And I just think of this as really just back and forth. Or this. What could be more natural than just back and forth? Left, right, just, like walking. Very easy. And I'm just doing one of those. 1 and 2. So that's on the and of 1. 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, and then 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, so I'm going to do the and of 2. 1, 2, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3. These are already going to sound kind of cool. I'm going to do the end of 3. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and I decided to pick that up. Making the bottom note a little bit shorter since I'm not playing. And then obviously the end of 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. That one's a little bit weird. Alright, so that would be level 1. The next one is I'm going to start by playing all quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to add eighth notes with my fingers. First on the first beat, that's going to sound like this. 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2. makes sense. And then I'm going to add eighth, I'm calling them eighth notes. Swing eighth notes on the second beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. Go through the whole thing. Go through the whole thing with that. Going through the whole thing on swing eighth notes on the third beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Going through the swing eighth notes on the fourth beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, some of you might be thinking, I don't want to go through each of these. I don't like some of these. This isn't really about what you want to use yet, but this is just learning. If you go through this with all these combinations, even one time, your brain will be open to just do whatever you want. You'll be surprised. So really, you know, this is kind of a really good formula. So we're gonna look at one more variation here, and this is where we're gonna add a whole triplet. First on the beat 1, I'm going to just really quickly go through this. So that's on beat 1. You're going to do beat 2. You're going to do beat 3. You'll be surprised how much this will open you up. And then beat 4, which is the hardest because you have to switch quickly. But these are already kind of starting to sound like Robert Johnson kind of lines anyway. And he was able to do all these very fluently. So another variations that we want to do here. Now what he'd like to do is add his pinky. This is on the 10th fret of the 2nd string. Now you can, I'd automatically go to the 1st string myself. But he likes this. What I'm doing here is I'm playing the chord, hammering on, and letting go of the pinky, and then playing the chord again. And then what I'm doing here, this is nothing, 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 6, 5, 5. This is the top part that you know, this A major bar chord that you use all the time. This is just the top part of that. So I have this A7 chord that we've been using the whole time on the 9th fret, sliding down to the 8, down the 7. I do not play 6. Nothing happens on 6. Don't play 6. And then I bar 5. You can do a whole bar or whatever, or you can go 5, 5 like that. Both of them on the 2nd finger and catch this. Then you learn, and because when you get that, you can do that backwards. Now if I do that, listen to this. So suddenly that's Thelonious Monk. So I got Robert Johnson from Thelonious Monk. And what I try to show people is that if I was giving you guys a lesson on Thelonious Monk, see, you think that I'm giving you a lesson on Robert Johnson. And it started out that way. But if I would have given you a lesson on Thelonious Monk and I would have showed you this, eventually I would have showed you how that was related to Robert Johnson. So I'm starting with Robert Johnson and ending up showing you Thelonious Monk. But I could have started with Thelonious Monk and showed you Robert Johnson. And that's because it's the same stuff. This is all the same stuff, baby. It's all the same moves. It's all the same moves. This is kind of, you know, people like, oh, this is just a higher up chord. This is his go-to chord. Is it really hard to play a chord up here? It's considered hard because usually guitar teachers and the pedagogy of our culture starts with these chords and then this is considered advanced. But what if I showed you this first? What if this was your first chord you learned? What if this was the only chord you knew? And you knew how to slide it around. And then eventually you discovered that was like 2 chords. Like, you know, that was another, you know. So they're quirky chords and they're unique and they're versatile. So this move, so you want to take this, by the way, and you want to be able to, you want to take this in each key. You see what I'm doing here? So this is the A7, slide it down, and then hitting this 6-5-5. This is back to the 7th fret. And then I'm just taking that and transposing it. And you can, of course, go through many different keys. You want to be able to. You see what I mean? You know, so this is just. I want to also talk about this here, because this little move that I'm showing you with a pick. If you want to invoke the spirit of Stevie Ray Vaughan, you take this chord and you do up picking, really, really fast triplets. Okay, so there's Stevie Ray Vaughan. See, this is, you know, again, I could have started with Stevie Ray Vaughan and went, this is all just the same stuff. This is just a blues lesson, really. And then, or maybe I arpeggiate. You know, I always joke with my students that I'd make up an idea, but what if I just take this and just do an arpeggio of each chord? That sounds like the beginning of Red House. Because that is the beginning of Red House. Of course, Red House is in a different key. But then if the guitar is well, whatever, you know. But that's a Robert Johnson move just adapted for the pick. So that's a really, you know, and then you start adding notes. You can also start doing things like this. Robert Johnson was really good at that. I don't know exactly how he was able to, what exactly he was doing. You see what I'm doing here? I'm hitting all three, without my thumb, I'm hitting all three strings. And I'm just hitting the bottom two strings. And I'm just hitting, so the top string goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and these go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And this is something else I want to point out about Robert Johnson, and this is something that I've found out that is also true about Stevie Ray Vaughan and Jimi Hendrix. If you look at Jimi Hendrix and Stevie Ray Vaughan, they really only, that's like the only shape they're really using. I know a lot of shapes that they don't know. I know all kinds of shapes, and I know them all over the place, and I can figure out a shape I don't even know probably fast enough that I can just, it's like I know it anyway. But they're only worrying about this one shape. They're not all around the neck. People say I want to be able to play all around the neck. Is that a musical goal, or is that just, that's like saying I want to have every kind of hammer. Well, what are you going to build? Do you want to build something? You probably only need one hammer. And I just want to point out the fact that Robert Johnson is only using a very certain amount of moves, but he is able to come up with these infinite variations. Just like Stevie Ray Vaughan and Jimi Hendrix are only using pentatonic shape number 1, but they're able to come up with, because they only have one thing to worry about. Like, think about this. Like, let's say you have one kid, and then someone else has 5 kids, someone else has 7 kids, and then someone else has 12 kids. Okay? The person who has one kid, that kid is going to get all the attention, and that kid is probably going to be able to do everything that if you have 5 kids, if you have 5 scale shapes that you work with, you have 5 things to worry about. If you have 7 scale shapes to worry about, if you do then you have 7 things to worry about. And if you do the Jack Russell, I don't even know, whatever that is, there's 12 shapes. I mean, this is just an observation. I'm not saying that anything is good or bad. I personally work with 5 shapes myself, you probably know which ones I'm talking about. If you don't, you got to sign up for some lessons. So anyway, going to the D7 chord, obviously these same variations are going to exist, but one thing that we're going to get here is I usually like to do the 2 fingers here. First of all, because I can get this, and even that. I can also have a little bit of a go. That's hammering on my pinky, hitting the 3rd fret of the B string. My ring finger just hammering on bass note. Now I also did this other thing here. So this is another A7 chord. First I slid with my pinky from the 5th fret of the D string to the 7th fret. And then, so what I have here is so nothing, nothing, 5th fret, 6th fret, 5. So nothing, 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 5, 6, 5, nothing. That's another way to play A7. Slide her down. This is another move. This is the 1st string second. When you slide it down, that's another move that Robert Johnson does. He usually skips a beat. So for the E, I just have this 1 finger down. Basically on the 2nd string, I'm going to add on the 2nd fret and the 3rd fret. You can always, if you want to, you can always do on the 1st string. You don't have a lot of time. In this case, if you were in the key of E, you might use all those notes. Usually, and Robert Johnson kind of only does the 2nd strings. And then this turnaround here. Again, I want you to do the variations that we were doing before. That's on beat 1, beat 2, beat 3, beat 4. That's going to go to an E7. In this case, you have to play either a whole E or lift your ring finger to play an E7. Then you do the triplets on 1, triplets on 2, triplets on 3, and triplets on 4. And then you start from there. Start making up stuff. Now to get some advanced stuff here, Robert Johnson, this note is, loves to have this note here. It's really hard to reach. It is on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string. So I'm going to play that while simultaneously stretching to the 5th fret with my ring finger on the D string, and then on the E string, the 1st string, on the 5th fret. So I have those 2 notes plus reaching this. That's a big stretch. If you can't get it, just play it without it, but if you can. And then I move into a bar. Another variation that's a lot easier and kind of sounds, I think even sounds cooler, is to just have your ring finger on the 5th fret of the 2nd string next to your pinky. And sometimes I even just use that at the end of a solo. And, so there's a lot of things that you can nitpick there. So another thing that I just wanted to say about Robert Johnson to close up is that just because that skeleton is the same, each song has its own particular quirk. See, one of the things is that all the songs have words and they're all about something. The guitars really are supporting. So in The Drunken-Hearted Man, it's a little bit slower. The song about cocaine is a little bit faster. And so there's a lot of variations and quirks, but one thing that Robert Johnson does, and you can find this a lot because you hear two different versions of it, is that he usually uses the same quirks for each song. Although it's interesting when he doesn't. He doesn't all the time, and but there is a lot of those same kind of tendencies that happen. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I just wanted to say that if you like this lesson a lot, I am going to be opening up another day at Taylor Music on Wednesday. So I'm going to be teaching Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays at Taylor Music in Westchester. So if you like this lesson and you want to learn more, please click the link below to learn more. If you sign up, you're going to get a $10 Taylor Music gift card. So I hope to see you soon, and maybe we can continue this more. And anyway, thanks for listening.